Welcome to another episode of Agency Action with your stars, Kurt Von Ahnen and Toby Cryns. That's me. Two people who have seen it all over the years in WordPress agency land. Kurt, I understand you're a little bit sick. What do you do as an entrepreneur when you need a couple of sick days, but you have a business to run? How do you handle that?
I'm living the dream this week, Toby. I'm living the dream. I went mountain biking Saturday, started not feeling so good Sunday. By Monday, and I thought it was allergies because it got real windy and cold and it had been warm before. You just made an assumption, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And Monday, Tuesday, bedridden. Wednesday, and I tried to do work. Tried. I'd come in, I'd stare at the computer. My brain just wouldn't fire. Just wouldn't, and it really hit me. I was like, and maybe this is dark. I might take it to the dark side, Toby. I've got a friend that I ride bicycles with that's suffering from breast cancer. My neighbor just died, a month ago, and I'm 58 years old. Like, what would happen if I really did get sick? Like, this week's a cold, right? Cold or a flu or something. But what if I got sick? What if my cancer came back? What if how would I run the business, or how would I manage the business if I really did get sick?
Let's talk about planning, perhaps. I'm just thinking out loud, because this can happen. And part of what I think about is like, what are the risks if that happens? Let's call that a worst case scenario where you cannot go to work. You're in a hospital bed, tubes in your nose. It happened all of a sudden. You're going to be there indefinitely. I like, it's probably a good idea today for everybody who runs a business to kind of think of that scenario. And there are things you can do, actions you can take. For example, there's long-term disability insurance in the US that you can purchase for yourself for that exact scenario. There's life insurance that you can purchase in the US for that scenario. Well, it's not exactly. So that's the thing. The life insurance it gives you way more money, but it's way cheaper because you're probably not going to die. You're going to be sitting in a hospital for 8 months. And so, well, first of all, let's talk about healthcare. Like, you need to find a way to get healthcare, first of all. Not you, Kurt, but just if you're owning a business, really, if you have responsibility for anyone, you probably need healthcare just to protect them from your worst case scenario. You need disability insurance. A lot of employers in the U.S. will buy that for you, but if you're a contractor, you've got to take care of that yourself. Same with health insurance, life insurance, which is actually death insurance. if you're from out of the U.S. But I think if you take care of those things, what I'm wondering is like, is it as scary?
I'm looking at it from the perspective of, you've got customers with expectations, and you want to take care of people. You don't want to leave them hanging. And I got the important stuff done this week. I was able to manage to get that to happen. But there was a lot. It is a good lesson on, hey, what's really not that important, right? You're like, well, I skipped that for a day, and the earth didn't catch fire. So look at that. I don't really need to be that concerned about that. But yeah. So like, my wife works a job that has benefits, and so we cover ourselves a lot that way, right? But you're absolutely correct. For a lot of people that are contracting, in this new gig economy, they're forgetting, like, when they bid on something on Fiverr and it's like super affordable, they're not leaving enough on the table to take care of things like health insurance, prescriptions, life insurance, things like that. And you're not getting covered in other ways. So you've got to make sure that you're able to cover yourself for those items.
And that starts with pricing. Like, this whole Fiverr economy is like really not, you got to price things in a way where you can pay the bills. And the problem with something like Fiverr is you need a lot of gigs at a low cost to pay any bills. And same with driving for Uber. Like, I imagine like a lot of the gig economy is like just not sustainable for somebody who wants health insurance and life insurance and let alone disability insurance, which is kind of pricey.
Yeah. So it was just an interesting perspective. And I'm usually not so dark, right? But it was like, wow, I'm pretty sick this week. Imagine if I had something that was something, a real thing to think about, and we've got some things in the background. You and I have talked before. I've got the internal training in the back end of our website. Somebody could come in and learn all of our processes that way. Somebody could always take over and help a customer. My son knows how a lot of the things work and all the passwords and all that stuff. They know where everything is. But I know a lot of business owners that don't even have that. Like, I know a lot of business owners where they might have a spreadsheet somewhere with their passwords on it, but they didn't share that spreadsheet with anybody. No one knows where it is.
There's so that's the kind of the worst case scenario. Then there's like, hey, I'm just sick and tired of everything and I'm
Yes.
sick on top of it. Let's just I always think sometimes I reach a breaking point in my what I do is I just lay down and take a nap. And basically I say, I'll get to you all tomorrow. And
Yeah.
sad to say, but sometimes I need that. And
Yeah.
usually by the next day I'm feeling much better.
For me, when I'm not sick, that's a bike ride. If I can put a podcast or Daft Punk in my ears and go for a bike ride for an hour, I'm a new person when I get home.
Hmm.
Completely new. It's like a fresh start. But that's like different ways that we meter. That's the way that you and I meter ourselves against distractions in the real world. Like, so many people go, "Oh, you work for yourself. That's such a luxury. That's such a, you're spoiled, or how, you have privilege, or whatever they want to say, right?" But it's like, if you're married with kids, the assumption is you're always available, and you're not. You're running a business, and you need to do business when other people are doing business, right? And so between the kids, the cars, the eye appointments, the dentist appointments, things that you do for your business, like going to a chamber of commerce meeting or a networking meeting in the afternoon, like all of that stuff really puts pressure against being productive and profitable for your own business.
I think one way to that I've learned to kind of, and by the way, I say all this stuff. It doesn't mean that every day I do a good job of it, but sometimes it helps for me just to write down one single thing that I want to achieve today for work, or it could be personal even. Like I could might have two things, one personal, one at work. And I find when I do that, it cuts through a lot of the mess that's laid out before me every single day of my life. Like,
I'm
so,
with you.
yeah,
The journaling for me has been a game changer. And I started doing that right at the very beginning of the pandemic, like before it even was a pandemic, I think. Chris at Lifter LMS signed me up for the SaaS Academy with Dan Martell. Dan Martell sent me a journal, and I thought, journals are for weak people. I'm not going to journal. Journaling is stupid, blah, blah, blah. Right. But then I thought, well, I'm taking this thing. I might as well put an effort in. And I started journaling with this journal he gave us. And I got like quietly addicted to it because, like you said, I was able to say, what are my 3 wins from yesterday? What are my goals for today? So I would journal in the morning with what I expected to accomplish for the day. And then I would journal at night with like, hey, how did that work out? And then I learned over time to kind of change that journaling requirement, right? So I stopped using the SaaS Academy model and I started using the Kurt Von Ahnen model. And so I use a Remarkable tablet, a digital tablet, and I journal every day. I read with my wife in the morning before she goes to work. We have a discussion. I write some notes about that. I have my goals for the day. And then at the end of the day, I try to write like a summary, but that doesn't happen as often as I would like it to.
I have an alternate take on the journaling thing. Journaling changed my life 25 years ago. I was introduced to it in a stream of consciousness journaling type of way in a class. And not only did I find that it, it like, I don't know, exponentially increased my creativity, the things that I was able to get out through stream of consciousness journaling. And to be clear, that means write for 10 minutes without lifting your pencil or pen, or type on your keyboard for 10 minutes without stopping. Don't correct any spelling, just keep going for 10 minutes. So it's a little bit, it's not targeted, there's no direction. The objective is just to do 10 minutes. And what I found is it had a similar effect to the one you described. And I still use it when I'm super stressed. I'll just sit down and be like, I'm just going to write for 10 minutes about my problems that I'm going through in my head. And I'll start with this mean person I talked to today yelled at me on the phone, and they don't know what they're talking about. And here's what we did. And then like keeps going. And then I keep going. I'm like, and my wife, da 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 da. And I sure do love playing piano. And look at that cat that's walking by. And by the end of it, it has a similar effect where I'm like, I have more clarity on where I need to be. I'm like more centered, know what I need to do next.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so weird because, like I said, I used to be the kind of guy that would make fun of people that journaled, right? And now I'm totally locked in. I even have a free course on journaling called Jot It Down. I invite everybody to take because it's a game changer, absolute game changer in the way you approach your daily walk, you know? Um, let's talk about, let's switch gears up a little bit. Like, let's say slowing things down, giving it thought. We talked about the journaling some. When people start an agency, and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but I remember when I started mine, it almost felt like I started my agency by accident instead of on purpose. The economy was down. I'd been playing with how to make some websites. I helped a friend with a website. Boom, he was happy. I helped someone else with a website. They were happy. My wife was volunteering at a nonprofit and their website was horrible. And I'm like, well, we can make a nicer website for them. So we made a nice website for them. And then people started wanting to pay me to make websites. And so it was like by accident. They were like, how much would you charge me to make a website? And I was like, I don't know, $500. And it was all and the economy was down. So I was happy for the $500, right? I look back at it now and I really want to beat myself up, Toby, because it's like, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars did I leave on the floor? But I was doing a lot of work at not a lot of money. And then it got me thinking, like, at what point as an agency owner did I really look internally at my setup and go, I need to revisit my pricing, my offer, what I do, what I don't do. And so I was wondering, like, to you, especially for new agencies coming into the space, what do you think makes an outstanding offer in the WordPress agency space?
I think as an agency owner, your job is to fund a very profitable business. And some learnings from early on in my career that I can share with you. Um, Agency cost calculators are all garbage. They will undervalue everything you do. And so the first thing I say is, if I were to start over, don't look at those. Uh, don't give away free websites, free consulting. I have a friend who runs a successful agency, and he still gives away stuff. And I always question. He thinks this is his opinion. Maybe it's true, maybe not. I don't think it's true, but that's my experience, not his. But he's also been in the biz for almost as long as I have. But he says that there's a lot of value in the free work, like exposure. And he specifically talks about branding. He wants a portfolio piece for his website. And I'm not a believer in that. I think you got to go get the money, ask for a price. Next time, try doubling it. See if you can get the more money next time, because you don't know where the ceiling is until you reach it with somebody saying no. And even then, just might be the wrong person.
Pre-qualifying your customer with your own wallet is probably the biggest mistake agencies make.
Yeah.
I saw a video 2 days ago. Someone sent it to me. It was Alex Hermosi trying to talk to somebody about using AI in marketing or something like that. But he said something in the video. I started to watch it, and he said, well, some people want to make websites, but anybody can make a website. Making websites is easy. And I was like, when people say that kind of stuff, they're completely off target. Like, is making a website easy? Sure. Yeah, let's say it is. Is making a website in Wix easy? Sure. Is Squarespace easy? Yeah. Is WordPress getting easier every day? Absolutely. But it comes down to make an effective website. Well, now we're having a different conversation, right? What does your copy look like? What does your design look like? How does it perform? All these things that go into a web project, and all these people are on the outside of the industry looking in, trying to tell us how easy it is. When if you're doing it right, there's a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross. And so it's very interesting to me. Like when I think about what an outstanding offer is in the WordPress agency space, I think of like David Valentine. He's this multi-millionaire business guy. And he talks about, I've grown so many multi-million dollar businesses with the outstanding offer. And it's like, you've got to put forth an offer that's too good for people to turn down. A 30-day money back guarantee, 40-day money back guarantee, twice your money back if we don't meet your expectations kind of stuff. And he says, will somebody take you up on it? Maybe, but most part, no. And it drives sales because it builds confidence. And so I think to myself, I would rather tell somebody 30-day money back guarantee than I'll build your website for free and put it in my portfolio.
That's a great idea that we don't do, that I think we're going to do starting tomorrow, the 30-day money back guarantee. Honestly, if somebody asked within 30 days, already it's on the table, just nobody's ever asked for it. Like if somebody after 30 days said, I want my money back, I would give them their money without any questions asked. So I would say, okay, this is clearly not a good fit, especially, some of our projects at the short end. They're probably 30 days or less. At the bigger project end, but which is probably where you need the 30-day money back guarantee. But it's like the big project end, 30 days is, we barely had the kickoff, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I
It's
like
super
that
interesting to
idea.
think about
Yeah.
the psychology involved in that, right? Because if you tell people, hey, look, we'll offer you a 30-day money back guarantee, let's just get started on this thing.
Hmm.
In the back of their mind, they have confidence. They're like, well, if it's not going the way I want it to, I can get my money back.
I really like that. When we're rebranding at the Mighty Mo, and one thing that enters my brain that I don't, there's a lot of fears that enter a person's brain, especially around branding and marketing, because there's zero use case for exactly what I'm doing. Like it's the same with you. Everybody, when you're working at this small scale, the relatively small scales that we are, like there's no data. And so like you might say, well, 30-day money back guarantee, that sounds like you're cheapening your product. And people are going to look at that and go, well, what am I buying, socks or pizza? But I kind of I like it. I'm willing, like at this point in this conversation, I'm willing to live with whatever blowback might come from that in terms of people looking at it, well, these guys are clearly not in the game for big projects. I had an experience recently where someone pitched me a project, and they said the project's going to be $5,000, but if you're not happy, we'll give you 3,500 back. And I said no, not because I didn't like the offer. I actually really liked the offer, but he's a friend, and there's no way I'm going to ask for the money back. Like even if the project sucks.
It's $5,000 or it's 1,500. Depends on how you feel on Tuesday.
Right. Yeah. But I liked the offer. Like it made me like do a double check, like, maybe I could do this. And and this is the thing. There's no way I would ever ask for the refund. But maybe it got me over the hump.
Yeah, I think it does a lot to communicate confidence. Like, I'm really confident in my team to knock this out of the park. And if you don't like what we're doing for you after 30 days, we'll just give you your money back.
I love your question originally. It was, what's an outstanding offer for an agency in the space? And the 30-day money back guarantee is like a headline type of thing. But in terms of services, I've been learning more and more, like people just want to be taken care of. They want fewer headaches. As soon as you get beyond this like race to the bottom for price, like there's clients that are just racing to the bottom on price. And then there's people that want just some steady operations happening.
Yeah.
And I think like you can offer, we've talked about this, hosting, support. Here's an excellent offer that I made yesterday, and I make every single time. And this is built into our agency DNA at this point. Talking to a client, a customer, a lead, not a customer, a lead who's inquiring on the phone. And they're like, one thing I always do on the sales calls is I try to like understand why we're talking. They already have a website, so clearly they already know somebody who builds websites.
Yeah.
And it came out on this call that their current web person isn't responding timely enough to emails and calls. And when I hear that, I see dollar signs because that's our offer right now. That's been our only offer. We will respond to every email and call within one business day. And believe it or not, sounds like not much, but people love that offer and we deliver on it.
Yeah, that's a big, big deal. I recently had a client that was discussing their, lack of support issues. And what was funny was I had already started to get the impression that this was going to be a high maintenance consumer at the beginning of the call. But they started to describe, well, I tried Squarespace and this is why I didn't like Square. I tried Wix. I didn't like that. I tried, I was on Go High Level. I didn't like that. Because I need my support answers, right away. And I was like, you are not a good fit for the Manana No Mas team. Have a nice day. And I don't think there's any shame in the game with that. Like, if something's not a good fit, I don't care how bad the economy is. You got to say this ain't a good fit. Like, I can't give you the red phone. You can't just call me at 3 o'clock in the morning like the bat phone and wake me up and get my answers.
Right. Well, they can, but there's going to be a price tag on that, and
Oh yeah, yeah. I should be very clear to the people out in the ether. You could buy that service,
and I
but
think
it ain't going to be $79 a month.
yeah, and if we're talking, this is actually a great segue to more advice for people who are starting or maybe experienced people to add better boundaries. If you throw a dollar amount on anything that annoys you, some customers will buy it and some will not buy it. But then you have your boundary and your life will be easier and you'll make more money, presumably.
Sometimes it's interesting. You put a dollar amount on something you don't like to do, and then they buy it, and then you actually have to do it. But I find that you begrudge it a lot less when you know you're making money on it.
Well,
Like, there's
yes.
a couple of things I don't like to do. And yesterday I had the chance to do a couple of those. And when I got it all done, my wife looked at me and she said, honey, I'm sorry you had to work. I know you're not feeling well. And I said, it's all right, babe. We just made $300.
Hmm. And I think,
Takes the pain away.
yeah. And I would argue, like, if you're still feeling pain, then the price needs to go up
Yes,
until
because
you
they
don't feel
said
that
yes to it
pain.
at that price.
Yeah. Seriously, that's what I try to do. Like, if something's causing me a big headache, I'm willing to do it for a price, and I will set that price at an adequate price point. Then I get excited to do it because
Interesting.
it turns out it wasn't the thing, it was the royal thing, the pricing, whatever. It really the pricing is really what was off in almost every single case where I'm annoyed to do something. Like if someone was like, Toby, I need you to work out every single day. You need to pump iron. I'm like, and you need to do it at 5 a.m., Toby. Every day you need to wake up early. I'd be like, there's no way. What if I paid you $500 a time? I'd be like, okay.
I'm in. I'm in.
Um, there's this, going back to what you said about the people who say making websites are easy. You're going to run into these people. I run into them in usually phone calls. Usually they want to suck up a lot of my time up front. And one way that I screen it is if they're talking price immediately, it's probably not a great fit. Or at least price is going to be the thing, and they're going to try to squeeze you, and that's fine. But then I approach it from that perspective. Um, what are some things when you're talking to potential customers? So this is the lead process. What are some white flags where you're like, great, let's go, versus red flags where you're like, this might be a problem?
It's going to sound a little bit weird. I have a lot of customers or leads that reach out to me and they say, oh, thank goodness I got you on a call. I didn't think I was going to be able to reach you. I'm just hoping that I can become your client. As soon as they say that, I realize the chances of them actually becoming a paying client is like 12 to 15%, maybe. And I say that because people see me doing this show, the WP Tonic show, and the stuff I do with Lifter LMS. And so I get referrals from Lifter LMS all the time, but people reach out to me because they think I am the expert in that space. And then they say they want to be my customer, but they really just want a free piece of information out of a discovery call. And chances are they don't really want to be my client. And if I'm going to be honest, if that's their motivation, I probably don't want them as clients anyway. And I have a relationship with Lifter, so I generally answer their questions and dismiss them and let them go. But I see that coming. Or there's a phrase that people say. I had a vice president that used to say this to me when I worked corporately. And every time he would say it, I'd want to punch him right in the throat. He would say, all you got to do is, and then he would lay out whatever the project was. All you got to do is, and then he'd lay out the project. And I'd be like, Dude, you just spit that out like it's some kind of 10 or 15-minute task. You just said all you gotta do is and laid out 500 hours of labor that my team's gotta create.
Yeah.
But he kept trying to propose things in a way that was, like, light and easy, and that got real frustrating. So, when I'm meeting with a customer and they say, "Well, I'm having a problem with the website, and I have a service provider, but I haven't been very happy, and all I need you to do is," I'm like, "Whoops, whoop, flag went up,"
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Here we go. Let's see what this is. Let's see what their perspective is."
Yeah, a lot of times I'll hear that a variation of that where this is easy, and this is literally how I'll respond in the call. Oh, great to hear it's easy. Why isn't it done?
Yeah,
Fill in the blank, and I'll just be quiet. And they're like, "Well, we have a developer. They said they couldn't do it," and
yeah. There's always some underlying simplicity thing that interrupted the flow somewhere, and I view being an agency owner almost like being a detective. Part of our job when we do these discovery calls is to figure out why they reached out to you in the first place, especially if they start the conversation with, "All I need you to do is," or, "This should be simple." Um, SCORM is an e-learning platform, an e-learning file type, and people have a lot of difficulty in working with SCORM packages. They're zip files. And but e-learning professionals will reach out to me all the time and they'll say, "Well, I don't understand why the reporting doesn't match up. I mean, this should be easy. This should be simple. All you got to do is," and I'm like, "Not there we go, right there. Like, do you want me to punch in and go to work for you, or are you asking me free questions? Because I'm not going to diagnose your website for free today."
yeah. I think another thing that I look for on these calls that I kind of screen for is urgent need. I love urgent need calls, and I know some agencies are not set up to handle urgent needs, but we have specifically made ourselves the agency of choice for urgent WordPress needs.
I love
And
urgency.
this could be a hacked site. They're going to a conference tomorrow and their site's down, or maybe they're going to a conference next week. And this happened recently. We talked about in the last show where there's someone called us. They're like, "We're going to a conference next week and we have a lot of downtime." And I was like, "I have just the thing for you. We'll migrate the site today and you'll have zero downtime next week when you're at the conference." Hack sites, love it. Um, and part of it is with urgent need, it automatically increases your value because it means they have less time to call other people. Let's say they spend a half hour on the phone describing the problem to you. How much time do they reasonably have in the next day or out, depending on the need? Can they invest another half hour talking to somebody else that might not be as good, might be cheaper, might be more expensive? And so I don't do a lot of I don't do any price hiking for urgent stuff. In fact, a lot of times I'll discount it. And I don't know if that's smart or not, but I really want to give them a yes. I want them to say yes because, especially, and usually urgent need, usually there's upsells like hosting, for example, maintenance. Like a lot of times urgent needs include that sort of thing. And so, but you can also set the boundaries in a way where you're not underpricing, but you're like I could see a scenario where we say, that sounds like something we can really help with, this urgent thing. I need you to buy 20 hours. And because we don't, that way we all have enough time to look at the scope and do the work, So I sometimes I'll frame it that way in terms of minimizing my win and the expenditure for being available, because a lot of people will say, well, just double the price. It's urgent. And I don't do that. I tend to just offer the same product, but I might put firmer boundaries around how many hours they need to pre-purchase and stuff.
Yeah, I like the idea of mentioning a needs assessment with any kind of urgent work. So I kind of learned this when I worked in the automotive field. A customer has a primary concern, right? But when you look at somebody's vehicle, if they have a coolant leak, they might need a battery, a fuel filter, or whatever. Well, it's the same with websites, right? The primary concern is the website keeps going down. So yeah, we can take a look at your primary concern, but if the website keeps going down, that's indicative that there's other contributing factors. So we're going to do a full needs assessment for you. We'll take care of your primary concern. We'll give you a workup proposal to take care of some of the extra things that we see. And that needs assessment is going to run 5 hours, or it's going to run 6 hours, or whatever. And when they say, "Well, I don't want to pay the 5 or 6 hours," I go, "Well, that's part of the process. I can't I can't band-aid your website and not know what else is potentially wrong with it.
Yeah, I think too, if you're an agency that's looking for long-term relationships, that's a great way to screen, is just to be real about, we're going to invest a bunch of time up front on this. We need you to cover that. But look, we want to be with you for the next 5 or 10 years. And so let's look at that timeline. And, 5 hours now is not going to be an issue in 5 years from now. As we wrap here, I wanted to ask one other question. Um, because as we talk every week, a lot of the questions that we respond to are about lead generation, really. And part of that is outreach. Um, where do you stand on your outreach efforts? How do you get leads? What are your current thoughts on that?
This is a really big internal conversation with our team here right now. And I've talked to others, that we subcontract with and everything else too, because I'm trying to figure out from everybody, like, what is actually happening right now. There was another, you know, Google SEO reset in the last month or so or something like that. And people that were getting 22, 24, 2,500 hits a month are now getting 1,000 hits a month again. Like, I mean, keep hearing these things about the SEO side of things. And so I go, okay, if I'm going to believe that, right? If that's the story or the agenda that's being propagated now, and I believe that, then I really need to be more considerate of some other options because I need to bring eyes to my business, just period. The podcasts are great, but I need to bring eyes to my business. How do I do that? I'm really active on LinkedIn, really active. I've used a couple of AI tools to do some cold outreach on LinkedIn, but whenever the outreach makes the first connection, I take over and make it completely organic after that. I think that's really important. So I do some of that. I've heard of other people talking about trolling Facebook groups and pages for leads, like joining, like if you're an Elementor person, you join the Elementor Facebook page, right? And you start offering advice and people come to you out of the blue. That's a very Gary Vaynerchuk kind of thing, right? Give away your best information for free and see if you can't win some business out of it. But I don't have the patience for that. And I don't have the patience to pay somebody to do it for me either.
Yeah,
So I struggle there.
we
And then
used
I
to.
think the last thing is cold emails. And
Yeah,
I get I literally feel sick to my stomach at the idea of spamming people about my business. And I shouldn't. Everyone else, I get spammed. I get 200 emails a day I got to delete. So apparently spam's completely acceptable regardless of GDPR rules, right? Because I don't see people getting fined $30,000 for spamming me, but I still don't think I'm the person that's going to buy a mail list. So it leaves me kind of stuck in my, how am I going to grow this thing and bring eyes to my business question?
yeah. We Years ago, the Mighty Mo, we would pay our team to offer free support on WordPress.org. And part of that, I would say the bulk of it was just, hey, here's a way for us to learn more about WordPress, you as
Yeah.
developers to learn more on my team. But also, I had a friend at that time who made a career at that time of WordPress.org free support. So he would go on there, reply all day, and just watch. You can imagine you're on the Events Calendar Pro page or Events Calendar free page, and they're like, how do I do this? There's a bug. And he's like, here's how you fix it. They're like, can you just fix it for me? You can imagine that scenario happening over and over and over. So there's that. I like that actually, as like you could look at it as trolling Facebook groups, but if you're providing actual support, it's not bad. Same with Reddit. If you could do it there too. Um, the Mighty Mo. So we are right now talking about uh, ways to generate more leads organically, meaning organic, meaning we're going to force the issue. We're not going to do any like blasts. However, we are looking into like very directed, targeted, one to one cold outreach. That could be phone call, email, but it would be, you know, we do a bunch of research. We find a company we think we're a great fit for, and we have like a ideal customer profile that kind of like outlines our criteria for that. But let's say we find a company, we find the person or two that we want to chat with, and maybe we ask them out to coffee if they're local, or maybe we email them and just say, hey, here's what we do, interested in talking. And so we're looking into that, and I think this is the always the game. And you get this all the time, I'm sure, because I get it. Uh, you get a client, and really what they need is more leads, which is requires you to think outside the box and like consider some of these things that you might find uncomfortable.
Yeah. I do a lot of membership and learning type websites. And so on the e-learning side, generally I don't worry about leads and SEO and stuff because the company is forcing people to take the training, right? So there's a built-in audience. But when you get into the course creator market or the coaches and authors markets, those are very much, sales related packages. People have to make leads and get sales. And most people in the coach space are ill prepared to deal with the idea that they don't have any audience yet. They do this, I'll build it and they will come mentality, right? And I tell them from the very beginning, what's your strategy for getting some people on this? Well, I know 25 people. I'm like, you need 25,000 people. Like you got to go get some numbers. It's a numbers game. And it usually comes a do or die kind of thing. And to your point, you have to get out of the box and go, how are we going to get 10,000 people to know this person's name? And
Yeah,
that's
and
very difficult.
I think coaches, in my experience, are a great use case for people. The ones who figure it out always do something. Their niche is different than when they started, and what they do is they're basically just following the money. They figured out maybe they started as like a business growth coach, but they end up as like business operations coach or something like that, or executive leadership coach. They're never where they never end where they start, and it happens pretty quickly. Like within a year or two probably of starting, where they're like, okay, I got some money going here. I'm going to head over to executive leadership coaching, or maybe they go down a different path. How
Well,
did you end up coaching? Uh, what would you say? Sports vehicles, because that's what you do. Something in that vein, right?
power sports.
Yeah.
But that's because I've published a book on the space, right? And
Take a step back. Why did you publish a book on that?
I couldn't sleep at night. I hated the job. I literally I hated it. I worked in the automotive field for 20 years. I worked for power sports dealerships in aviation, all of it. And I couldn't stand the way businesses were always trying to rip customers off. And I never understood because I was like, if we just meet customers where they're at and we build relationships with people and we serve them well, don't oversell them stuff they don't need, we're going to make more money than we can shake a stick at. If we just do the business right, we're going to make a ton of money. And I ended up writing a book. Ducati hired me. They asked me to write a course for them. I wrote the course for them. And then I didn't have to sell it, right? Because they told dealerships to take the course. Dealerships that took the course, on average, experienced a 47% increase in service revenue. So that turned into a self-fulfilling kind of thing, right? And so now here we are. That started in 2010. And now I'm independent and run the Power Sport Academy and work with the Marine Retailers Association.
Love that as a case study. Like, um, that you figured out a way to like an honest and this is, by the way, I believe most coaches are the good successful coaches figure this out too. It's like if you're speaking honestly, like you're not selling the snake oil, but you're really trying to help businesses do better. um, I think and I want to take a step back and say that's the goal of our WordPress agency too. And I
Yeah.
think you're going to have longer term success if you really approach it like that. And you're going to have to say no to some stuff that's not a perfect fit. You're going to have to figure out where your niche is. And the only way that I know to do that is follow the money. So at some point, somebody hired you, Ducati hired you, and you're like, oh, there's some money here. So you didn't have to veer off
Yeah.
and do something else.
Yeah. There's some money here. When you were talking earlier and talking about how coaches will follow the money, it's amazing how many coaches end up teaching how to become a coach, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Membership people end up teaching how to make a profitable membership.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, you still haven't really made a profitable membership. Now you're just trying to make money off the other people that were going to lose just as much as you were losing.
Yeah.
It's a very, very strange dynamic. When you find a coach or an author or someone in the space that had a topic and stuck with the topic, that to me is where you can really kind of do like a what would you call that? Like like an autopsy, right? What do they call that? The I can't remember. It's a name begins with a P, I think. How did that happen?
Post-mortem is what
Yeah, do a post-mortem, right? How did that actually happen? How did that occur? And in my case, it was someone else had the funding. Sometimes you got to find the people that have the money to make your dream come true.
Yep. All right. Well, let's end it there. We had a great time with our audience today. Great time, Kurt. Thank you for joining us when you're sick here. I'm Toby Cryns. Kurt, how can people find you?
For personal contact, LinkedIn's great. I'm the only Kurt Von Ahnen on LinkedIn, so you got me. And the agency name is Mañana No Mas.
And I am Toby Cryns, Cryns, on the old LinkedIn. And you can find me at The Mighty Mo, and that's mo.com. You can contact me there. Thanks, everybody. This has been Agency Action. We'll see you next week.